I'm always there just in the background, just like you can actually see me doing this as well at the bottom, just like dancing to the tune. Fantastic. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another session with us at Aucademy. I say this every week, but I'm very excited about this session. I think it's because I do generally pick fantastic topics that I'm really interested in. So I'm just always like, oh, this is going to be great. So we're trying to be more accessible. So quick, brief introductions in terms of our names and what we look like. So I am Dr. Chloe Farahar. I am a shaved-headed woman with giant glasses sitting in my office. And I'm joined by my fellow educator and presenter, Tigger Pritchard.
Hi, I'm Tigger. I am a young mid-50s with a shaven head, though a lot of it is naturally induced rather than induced by myself. Some lovely grey stubble, and today wearing a bright red t-shirt.
And we are joined, very excitingly, by Anna. Hello, Anna.
Hello.
Do you want to describe yourself for people?
So I'm Anna. I have bright pink hair with like purple at the top. And I'm just sitting in my room with my Queen posters, my Queen wall behind me.
Fantastic Queen posters, which is a very good, what do you call it? Is it like no, it's not an Easter egg, but it's just, yeah, we're going to be talking about
relevant
interests and Queen.
Yes.
So today's topic is the importance of interests for autistic people and their well-being. So Anna is going to educate myself and Tigger about the importance of these interests, and we're going to very, very much focus on Anna's particular interest, which is fantastic and really interesting.
Yay.
And I think this is quite important as well, because as autistic people, particularly when you look at the very negative diagnostic manuals, they talk about, you know, special interests, and a lot of people are always worried about how we're just so absorbed in particular things, and you know, how is that particular thing, how is lining objects up, and how is collecting little tiny rocks and all this kind of thing, how is that going to help that person get a career and all this kind of stuff. But actually for us, our dedicated interests are so important. They're not special interests, they're specializations, and they're dedicated interests that we have. I think hopefully if we remember, we might talk about that, like, why is it different? Why is it not a special interest? And why is it actually a dedicated? I might make that as a note. I'm going to make that as a note. Hold on. The difference between special interest and dedicated or specializations. We obviously frame it differently. So, Tigger, do you want to kick off with our fantastic first question we ask?
Well, the first question is about Queen, who I might just have a small passion about as well. Go on.
We forgot about the who are you annual. Sorry. Tigger is so excited.
Yes.
We're so excited.
I'm so eager
about this topic. Sorry, do you want to start with the other one?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Straight into the one question. I'm like, I want to ask about that really badly because it's such a passion and interest of mine as well. But first, before that comes, okay, awesome, Anna, who are you, and when did you discover that you are awesomely autistic?
So I discovered, like, I got diagnosed when I was 11, like just before my 12th birthday, but they've been trying to get a diagnosis, I think, for about 2 years before that, but I went through CAMS, and CAMS definitely have more of a criteria aimed towards the stereotypical male presentation. And like, I could go on about how stupid that entire assessment is. It's like they get a picture book out, and they just tell you, notice all the details, what can you see in this, and then they judge it on how many things you find and how many small details that you notice. Anyway, so we went somewhere else to get the diagnosis, and within about 3 sessions they were just like, yep, don't doubt it, there you go, goodbye.
Good.
But so that's how I found out.
Fantastic. I mean, our next question, which we ask all of our guests, kind of is the rest of this session. So I'll kind of ask it because we always ask it anyway, but then we're going to go into more detail because it is the point, which is, what are your dedicated interests and specializations?
Okay, so mine, there's a couple. So there's Queen, obviously, that's already been mentioned. I have my Queen wall. Some people call it a shrine, but I would disagree. I also have an interest in the band Gorillaz, not the animal, which is a fairly new one, but I've become very immersed very, very quickly. And also Stereoscopic, which is a form of 3D photography.
And we're going to talk about each of these in turn because they're actually absolutely fascinating. I think, sorry, Tigger, before we get on to, I know Tigger's like, we're going to talk about Queen, we're going to talk about Queen. But I think it is quite useful if we do that question, like, what is the difference between a non-autistic person's term for us, which is having a special interest, versus how we actually view it, like maybe as a dedicated interest or a specialization, and do we feel that those are important differences, like how we understand it? So why do many of us as autistic people really get frustrated with that term special interest?
Well, for me, I think it makes it sound like it's something like negative. Like, I don't really like that word special when it comes to autism, because it kind of, I don't know, I just don't like it. It kind of, all right, how do I explain this? I don't know how to explain it, but like,
is it that it kind of belittles or infantilizes?
Oh yeah, that's
something so important for our well-being and our experience with the world.
Yeah, I think when you hear the word special, it's kind of like a word that you would use to small children as well, like which is just what you said. Yeah, exactly,
we're not children. And not that, and then there's the issue as well, is that actually as adult autistics, there's nothing wrong also with us having childlike interests or movements or anything like that. So and I also feel like, because we hear, you know, when it comes to like education and that, when you're autistic, it tends to be like the word special is used. And things. Tigger, do you have any?
Well, but part of it is, you know, I have this. It's a labelish issue. It's a excuse me. It's a perceptual issue as well. So the minute you're passionate about something and you know about it, people will listen. People will look at you. People go, "Oh, that is so cool. Isn't he, she, they so intelligent?" Then the minute you say the word autistic, they go, "Oh, yeah," and they go, "Right, yeah, so gotta go. Bye." Do you know what I mean? And it's kind of like the minute you link that passion, that interest, that wealth of knowledge with, you know, and then for the rest of the planet, so to speak, that word then, you know, hey, I'm autistic. It's like, right, okay, therefore, at one point it's perceived as being something really cool. But the minute you open it to some people and say, oh, I'm autistic and this is my passion, interest, etc., they just view it completely differently. And that's what I find fascinating. So, you know, literally for me, a lot of individuals will completely change their viewpoint of your passion, your interest, the minute you include the word autistic. Before then, it's kind of like, it's okay. And the minute you include the word autistic, it's not okay because you're special. And boom, they're off. Yeah. And it's like, no.
Non-autistic people can have intense hobbies. They can dedicate their careers to things that they're really, really interested in. But like I say, as soon as we're autistic, it's infantilized, it's a problem for some reason. And I think part of that, you know, there's those stereotypes that we're going to be really, really interested in trains. Yes, some autistic people I know who are fantastic people, very, very knowledgeable about trains, very knowledgeable about train timetables, actually really interesting and useful. But that's such a narrow stereotype that, I mean, there's numerous reasons why I didn't realise I was autistic, largely because of, you know, the stereotypes and so on. And that really didn't help. And I didn't think I had special interests in quotation marks until people were like, well, it's mental health and psychology. It's like, does that count when I'm like doing a degree in things? And like, yeah, because you've made your interest your interest in like your education and all that kind of thing. So I think I saw a fantastic, it was like a meme thing. I do love a good meme or a picture or an infographic. I always get confused which is which. So we have Aucademy memes. I've got off on a tangent, but we have Aucademy memes, right? And memes tend to be kind of funny, whereas I thought we would use that as an infographic sharing thing. And I was like, okay, I really don't know what memes are then. But I saw this fantastic post the other day where it was like, it was a picture of a young autistic person, and they were separating the colours of little teeny tiny like pebbles or rocks or something, and people going, well, that's never going to get them anywhere, and how is that special interest going to help them and things. And then showing I don't know if it was like a type of geologist who deals with rocks, but saying, you know, actually that would be useful in this specific career, which is to be able to pick apart and see those details and things like that. So people, they get it round the wrong way. They're trying to fit us into certain careers where actually, why can't we have our dedicated interests and see where those take us? Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. Tigger.
What now?
It's the moment you've been waiting for.
What's happening now? Oh, is that question? Sorry. Yeah, I do have. I mean, wow. Okay, right, Anna. Oh, here we go. This first bit is like, yes. It's like, oh, I'm having a bit of a soul as well, huh? I'm like, we're absolutely in heaven about this one. So, Queen.
Yes.
Who I might have a small, huge passion about as well. How did you get into Queen?
So I've kind of been like a casual listener my entire life. And I know Queen fans usually kind of look down on people that discover Queen this way. But the film Bohemian Rhapsody came out, and I went to see it, and I went to see it again, and again, and again, and again. And that, I think after the first one, I came home and I was like, oh my God, because I kind of tend to focus on people. So as soon as I learn something about the people, that's when my interests start to form. And I've been a hardcore Queen fan ever since.
Lush! Oh.
And that film was fantastic.
Oh, the film! I know as a hardcore Queen fan, his performance was incredible. I will say that there are obviously some inaccuracies, but
yeah,
on the whole, it was lush, and it introduced a whole new planet to Freddie and the band, and music and the lyrics and the songs and their awesomeness. And so no, I might have seen it more than once as well.
So 5 times.
I'm betting that Anna knows exactly why there were inaccuracies in that film.
Yeah, well, I think when it comes to films, you know, you have to have an interesting plot. And sometimes real events don't have the order of things that would be considered, you know, a decent plot. So like mixing things up a little bit. And another thing is Paul Prenter, which kind of, he's not a good person. He wasn't a good person, but he was completely villainized in that film. Which did, like, I don't know. But, and then they recorded, what was it? They recorded We Will Rock You before they recorded, was it Jazz? I've not seen it in ages, but yeah, there was a whole song recorded from an album that hadn't been out before the album that was released that year. I don't know, but it was.
Yeah, but they have to do. I mean, it's like the film about Alan Turing, who's another hero of mine. The Enigma machine. When they portrayed it in the movie, I think it was vastly different in size in real life, but it wouldn't have looked that good in the movie. So there is that little license, there is that flow. I think it is awkward when you portray people that have existed. You do have to be careful.
Yeah.
But it is still, you know, it was a phenomenal movie, and it reached so many people. They've never, heard of Queen before, and it was like, wow, hello. And his performance was awesome, absolutely awesome.
Did you not think Willem looks a lot like Brian? No, everybody disagrees with me, but he's got the same facial structure.
Have you seen the bit where they do the? Have you seen the bit? I'm sorry. Have you seen the bit on YouTube where he plays the? Is it the riff from Bohemian Rhapsody? So Brian May comes in while they're recording the bit for the film. He says, "This is what it sounds like," but he's just standing there going, because it is like this is like this is like an astronomical event, and he's just standing there as an actor and also as a Queen lover, just standing there thinking, pinch myself. Okay, I can do this, yeah, and that must be like,
it must be
wow.
mad seeing somebody play yourself, like looking at them and going, "That's me. They're playing me." It must be surreal. I think Anita was surprised as well. I can't remember what it was that she said. I can't remember what it was, but no. I love Anita. I love Anita.
Queen mostly played a major part in it. It was just an excellent movie. It really was. And I know, because I'm like that, I'll go, well, there was some inaccuracies here, there, and this one and that film and so on. But the package it gave was superb. And the music, but have you seen also the YouTube clip where they compare him on the stage at Live Aid? Yeah. It is just, it is just so good.
They filmed the first scene that they filmed for this film was Live Aid. Which must have been so nerve-wracking. Like, imagine first day on set and they're telling you, let's do this one. We're going to do the most iconic scene in the entire film, the one that everybody's going to eat up.
Because from my perspective, Queen had been huge and had dipped a bit, and they came out on that stage in Live Aid, and everybody, who was there at the time across both the concerts were on and so on, will tell you that, the best band of the day was Queen. They came out, they owned it, they got the crowd going like, and boom, it was just, and they are remembered as the biggest act then that came out at Live Aid, because the way he gathered the crowd, hugged them and said, "Hi, let's have a great time," and just played the music and just went, again, was just incredible.
And what I love about Live Aid is the band was actually on the brink of breaking up. They were all sick of each other. They were ready to go their separate ways. And then Live Aid happened and they were like, no, okay, this is giving us this drive. So they went to the studio and they recorded A Kind of Magic. And then they did the Magic Tour, which is their, hands down, their best tour. Their best gig ever is at Wembley, live at Wembley.
Right, I've got to say this. I have to say this. Apparently, if you look at the Live at Wembley video, DVD, whatever, in the first shot, apparently you can see me and my friends running through the gates.
Really?
I was there. Oh, yeah, I was there. Of course I was there, yeah. I'm that old to have been to a few Queen concerts, amazing. I must confess. So I've tried and I just can't see, but one minute's go, you're there. Obviously with hair, okay? But you're there. But no, I can remember the balloons coming out and like Freddie floating off into the distance. No, it was hands down. I've been to a few. It was hands down one of the best concerts, and certainly the best Queen concert I've ever been to.
I can imagine it was going down a rabbit hole now, trying to find
phenomenal. I know. So yeah, no, I've looked myself, but my friends are insistent that it's there. But I think so Queen. Why do you love Queen? Why do you love Queen?
Like they were completely out there, and they took, I think, with A Night at the Opera, they took a massive risk. Like the first few albums, I think, first two albums, they were kind of going along with everything that everyone else was doing, you know, what was popular at the time. And they're good albums, but they don't have that Queen sound to them. And then Sheer Heart Attack, that's when they started developing that, but they were still going with what was safe. And Killer Queen was their first hit. It came to number 2. It was never number 1, but it did really well. So for their next album, they did A Night at the Opera, and they were told they did something that had never been seen before. Bohemian Rhapsody, a rock song that has an operatic section.
And like in the movie, it was like, hey, we're not playing this. You've got to be joking. Get out of here. No, because in those days, singles were short. You don't listen to, people won't keep interest. Boom, the rest is history. The only way to describe that album is regal. That's the only word that you can use to describe it. It's like, it is, and the album itself looks gorgeous because the emblems all over it. But again, some of the songs in it and the album that followed are just Oh, you know, I
one-
can't describe the emotional flow I can get from a Queen song. It's just incredible sometimes.
The one that I love the most, and I am devastated that it's underrated because more people need to hear it, is the Prophet song.
The Prophet song.
Just putting your headphones on, shutting your eyes, blasting it.
It's I mean, the songs, the rhythms, I mean, there's there are so, I mean, their critic says its hits album is like huge, phenomenal. Well, is it the biggest selling of all time? One of the biggest selling albums of all time, Queen's greatest hits.
Yeah, I
but
think
you're right. People often, when you delve into the albums, especially the early albums, there's some stuff on there.
With the greatest hits, yeah, you completely miss some actually really amazing songs.
Yeah.
And have you guys ever watched the like videos of people who've never heard Queen before and they're hearing them for the first time?
Yeah.
And just those individuals, their responses to that. I feel because I feel like so many of us, we're all different age groups, right? So like Tigger says, young 50s. How do you describe yourself? I forget. What is it? A very young 53, do you say?
Hey, well, I'll go for 53. Thank you so much. No, a bit older than that. I'll go for 53. Thank you. Yeah, a young mid 50s.
Okay.
Young mid 50s. I'll go for that.
I'm 37, and you're 18, aren't you?
I'm 18. Yeah.
18. Like, we're all different age groups, but we've all loved Queen in different ways and at different times. Like, you know, Tigger was lucky enough to actually attend concerts. I sadly remember when Freddie died, and I was about, I try to think how old I must have been. I must have been about 5, and I couldn't listen to it anymore. Couldn't listen to any Queen anymore. I was in mourning, and it kind of triggered me as a really small child to listen because I knew he was gone, and I couldn't deal with that. And I actually didn't really allow myself to listen to Queen songs again until I was an adult, because it was too much. It was too sad and too powerful. And I think that's a huge impact by a band. And like you said, like with their music, like Bohemian Rhapsody, and, you know, being that rock opera and what have you, it's like they tell stories. They're these epic stories. They're not just music in quotation marks. They are these amazing stories that you get sucked into.
What I love is that they have so many different songs with so many different like sounds. Usually with like, you know, bands back in the day, they just went for, you know, rock, guitar. Well, obviously they all have like the band structure, but like, you know,
they have
the
same
sound. Yeah. Whereas Queen, you've got songs like Death on Two Legs, and then you've got Brighton Rock, and then you've got The Millionaire Waltz, Love of My Life. You've got, you know, it's such a diverse.
They are. I mean, there's 39, which I adore, because with my little quantum physics hat on, it's actually a song about time travel. But in a normal universe, it's like, you know, going near the speed of light and coming back and aging differently. And you know, and that to me again was like Brian bringing his other world into music. And people go, is it? Because people listen to the lyrics and they go, it's about almost traveling at the speed of light, therefore time slows down for the guy that's traveling, and therefore there's an age difference when they travel that distance, blah, 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 and comes back to see his family. Oh, right, okay. And you wouldn't think that, would you? Because people wouldn't do stuff like that in that day. They did. No, they just, I mean, you know, and I think, you know, why do we love them? I have to say, which I think we've spoken about before, and you can agree with, Queen has at times, well, I don't know how to say it, fixed part of me, kept part of me together. It's like the song Save Me has really made a difference, and has really made a difference to more than one occasion, to my mental health. Has made a huge difference to my psyche, my soul, and that to me is just, you know, incredibly powerful.
Yeah, Queen have actually helped me through a lot of my mental health issues as well. Like, they've got me through some really, really rough times. Like, there's some songs that I just listen to. I put my headphones on, I put them on full blast, and there's so many songs that they have where there's so many things going on at one time, which is why I love the Prophet song. and you can just, you know, close your eyes and just completely shut off from reality. It's really, really good.
I mean, I see you've got some. I mean, I cannot. I was going off on a tangent then because of the pictures behind you, but I cannot really state enough for me personally how incredibly important Queen has been throughout decades of my life, because I am that almost, well, definitely middle 50s guy. Recently, I know there will be in the future, there have been times when I've gone to certain tracks, certain albums, because the difference they've made to my soul and to my stress at that moment in time has just been incredible, and I've latched onto them like some kind of, like just some kind of emergency thing. Whoa, put that album on really quick, and I find that power incredible, absolutely incredible. But I'm going to do this bit because you've got some posters of Queen behind you.
Yes.
I've done this before, but I'm going to do it on the screen for fun. But I have an early picture of Queen to share with you all, which I will show. I haven't got permission from the other band members, but I don't know. Is that seeable?
If you put it in front of your face as well, we'll probably see it a bit better.
There we go. Right.
So we do a little description, little audio description of what we're looking at. We are looking at Queen in quotation marks. Queen in quotation marks. 4 band members. We've got one at the front with a cowboy hat on, a middle person with a moustache. The person on my far right, that is right, isn't it? Is got a massive black curly wig on. Are they actually holding a guitar?
Yes, I am. No, I think is it a badminton racket or something?
And then there's a person at the back with a baseball cap on backwards. So there's a nice description for you.
That's a picture of myself and my dear friends when I think I was 18, and we did a bit of Queen on stage. I was playing Brian May. There's my friend Stuart playing Freddie, my friend Stephen, and then you've got Ian at the back as the drummer. That's how old I am, and that's the hair I wish I still had. That's a wig, obviously, but that's how long I've loved Queen, and since before then. You must be looking at, when they first came out. I remember friends playing me their albums, and just thinking, "Oh, who's this?" And I was like, But I like you, Anna. Your poster's gorgeous. I've got to say this as well, because you've got a box set of Queen albums, haven't you?
I do,
and
it's my prize. That's my second prize possession.
It is. Just Google it or bing it. It's a beautiful. It is, isn't it? It's got albums in different colors. It's boxed. It's got a book with it, and it is something that I aspire to get. But it has a small price tag on it. But I am slightly jealous that you have it. And I have to say, we first met. Wow, your passion for Queen lights up my world as well as yours. Yeah, and I love it. Yeah,
I love talking to people who like Queen on the same level as I do.
Yeah, and it is, isn't it? And this is what I love about passions. People do not understand.
And to be clear, that
passion, that joy that comes out.
To be clear, that box set is vinyl.
Yeah, so it's a vinyl box set, and it has all their studio albums, and each studio album is on a different coloured disc, and it's just.
Oh, I have to get some albums for it. I'm like, whoa. Oh, it is beautiful.
I think as well, like talking about music. So we've talked about, so you're like, Anna, your fascination with the people who are or make up Queen. We could probably talk about that a little bit more as well. Like, why do you love those individuals and them as a band? But can we talk a little bit about the stimminess of Queen music? Like, yes. So we've talked about how it makes us feel good and our mental well-being and things like that. But it's so stimmy, like beautifully spot on, not a note wrong, stimmy.
Very. It's just.
So like the story that is being told in Bohemian Rhapsody is so stimmy. And you said like Brighton Rock. I love Brighton Rock.
Oh, Brighton Rock is such a good song. Brian May is just, oh my God, he's amazing. He's absolutely amazing.
And the stimminess of Brighton Rock and that fast-paced, is just fantastic, and you get lost in it. And sometimes we need that. We need to like just break away from whatever, whether we're socially, sensory, or emotionally overwhelmed. We want that real absorption into something stimmy, and I think that music can really give that to us. Do both of you have like a song or a particular number of songs that you will just listen to over and over again to like sort of stim to and get distracted?
Prophet song.
Prophet song.
Yeah, it's.
Tigger's thinking.
I'm just trying. Well, because there's so many. The Works album was quite big for me because I saw that came out again, and that was brilliant, and the video is really powerful. Hammer the Fall, I quite liked for a period of time, intensely so. Used to run to it, used to gym to it and stuff, used to really like it. Of late, actually, the one that when we first got talking, the one I just continually played because I hadn't heard it for so long. The 2-1 is Love of My Life, which I've been there when you would hold the lighter, which you can't obviously do anymore. I've been there when you hold the lighter rather than holding the light of your phone, yeah? The other one was Sail Away, Sweet Sister.
I went through a massive phase of that song.
Yeah, and it is a complex song, but I just played it and played it and played it. Not long after we first met, I loved it.
I love the bass line to it. It's such a nice bass line.
But to me, it's really difficult to choose which one. Sometimes there are so many that I adore, but music wise, I think I've said this before. I have a. I've talked in other areas that, if I love a song, I can get on the train when I used to get on the train in Truro because I'm down in Cornwall, travel all the way to London, and I've got the same song on repeat, and I'm in heaven. Exactly the same song, and I'm like, yes, thank you so much. But I have all their albums, a few on vinyl, not the box set, but a few on vinyl. And but you're right, and this is the thing where I find it difficult that others don't understand. With other individuals around me who are not awesomely autistic, they will go, "Oh, not again," not again. I'm thinking, I wish you could understand the beauty, the power, the symbioticness of it, if I can use that term, the kind of like the whole gorgeous taste-like experience of listening to that song again and again and again. That's something I find incredibly powerful.
Yes, it is. I think it's just a whole experience. I think, just. I don't know.
I think there's quite a lot about some of the beautiful nature of being autistic. Again, obviously not all autistic people, but it makes me think of, so when we might change some of our dedicated interests, we might move on to something new, but a lot of the time we still get the same love and enjoyment out of something that we've loved for a very long time. So like you said, Tigger, people will be like, oh, not this again. And you're like, I feel sorry for those people because they don't and cannot get that same joy out of something over and over again. And I think that's quite not necessarily a unique thing to being autistic, but I definitely think it's a fantastic strength that we have. And I'm thinking, because we're going to have we've had on Dante, who's a comedian, and it makes me think of the same thing as well, that as autistic people we might find the same shows still amazing and funny years later, and we've watched them a million times, and we might still find the same joke funny and things like this. Like we can have a very powerful ability to still like and enjoy and love something, whereas a lot of non-autistic people might lose that. And I think that's kind of sad. I feel sorry for them.
Yeah, no, me too. It must be, yeah. I don't know where I was going with that, but
so that's the stimminess. We've talked about kind of the music, like the technicality of the music and stuff. So what about the people?
I've just always liked interesting people, like people who have a lot to it and people that there's a lot that I can learn about. I spend a lot of time learning about them as people, their personality, their life, their passion for music, you know, how they got into music. There's so many times that I look at people, I'm just like, I want to get into your brain and I want to know what you're thinking when you're coming up with these things, because it's just incredible. But I just like learning about people.
And anything in particular that you want to share about your love of like Freddie Mercury, Brian May, like them as people that you've found really interesting?
One thing that I find interesting is just Freddie and his character, because he's this, you know, really powerful person. He can control an entire crowd. He comes off like slightly arrogant on stage, but off stage he's not. He's a very chilled out person. He's completely different. He's soft spoken. He's very intelligent, actually. He also has oh my god, he has a 5-octave vocal range, which, and scientifically, it's been scientifically proven that his voice is one of the strongest voices of all time, one of the best voices technically. I don't know. Oh my god, my brain's fried today. He's got scientifically, he has the best voice in history. He has the most powerful voice in history. His vocal range is 5 octaves, which is almost unheard of. No, he's amazing. He's
and isn't it the case
amazing.
that because he had too many teeth, or it was something which meant that he had it kind of amplified to some extent? Is that right?
Yeah, so they don't actually know how his voice is so powerful, and they've actually done studies on it. They think it could have something to do with the extra space in his mouth. That could have. But another thing is, his voice developed so much from the start of Queen. His voice was a lot less powerful, and his vibrato was, you know, developing. And then if you compare that to how it was in, you know, a kind of Magic, where his vocals were at his most powerful, I don't know, he's just amazing. He's absolutely incredible.
One of the things he used to do at the concert was just go through like one end of the scale to the other. And there came a point where you could not do what he did. And it wasn't, it was almost like we'd stand there in our thousands like going, because it was an incredible range. And as you're right, as you see that range develop across the albums, his confidence as well, I think, was important. And the fact they're allowed to do material they wanted to do rather than sticking to the norms they did in the early days. It is, and I love the bit when and I can't say a name, but he collaborated with on the album Barcelona. Thank you. I'm terrible with pronunciation at times. And I think there's a story about where he sang once and just went through some singing and she cried because she'd never heard such a beautiful voice in her life. Yeah. And they just gelled with their power of music together and stuff like that. I just, people would go, what? Freddie Mercury, the rock guy, is doing an album with an opera singer. Really? Yeah, really. Because both of them have that passion and that strength and that ability, and they respected each other so much. And, they just, I just loved his range, the way he grew over the years and stuff, and just a phenomenal voice.
Yeah, and he just didn't care what people said about him. He didn't care what people were telling him to do. He was just like, no, I will do what I want. No.
And that's the thing, and it paid off.
Yeah. He was so passionate when he was younger. He knew, I want to do music. I want to be a singer. I will be a singer. I will be a star. And he wanted to be in Queen, which was called Smile at the time. And he played in other bands, and they didn't really want him in the band at first because his voice was, Roger described it as a bit goaty, like the vibrato. But eventually, he went in the band, and it's been in it ever since.
Been
And
epic.
now they're one of the most iconic bands in history.
And that's the thing. How many bands can we say from the last 20 odd years are going to be as remembered and important to people's lives? There may be one or two, maybe, but I think certainly Queen is probably the band, isn't it? We can definitely just talk about this forever.
Yes.
But shall we move on to stereoscopic photography?
Yes.
So I love this because you have these different dedicated interests, and this is a very different, well, it's still connected, isn't it? But it's a very different type of interest. So can you explain briefly stereoscopic photography? And I might actually find an example so that I can share it in a second.
So stereoscopy is a type of 3D photography that was popular in the Victorian era. So what it is basically you take two images were taken of the same thing, but just from slightly different angles, kind of, facing in. So kind of like a wee triangle. And then what you do is you view it. You can use a viewer or you can just do it, with your eyes. And the two images merge together to create a 3D image right in front of you. And it's what I love about it is it's like you could just reach in. It just feels like you can just reach into the image and you're there. And it's so simple, but it's so effective. And it kind of makes me sad that it's still not, a popular thing, because it really could be. But kind of with new technology, people are like, no, let's, embrace this technology when, you could go back to basics.
So if I share my screen, I've just Googled images for stereoscopic photography. So you tell me what is a good example to show people.
Okay.
Screen 2. So this makes my eyes go funny. That
is a form of it, but if you go to the one with the two images. So
at the top, you've got lots of like this.
Yeah, go for that one there. So that is an example of a modern one. So, two images, as you can see, there's two images beside each other. And these ones are from slightly different angles. And you use a viewer. I don't have one on hand. You view it. So that's an old stereoscope from the Victorian era there. Obviously, there's different ones now that are a lot smaller.
Updated, yeah.
Yeah. But
so what we're looking at here then is the two images side by side, but when you look through these viewers,
yes,
you see one image.
Yeah, so the two images merge together to create this 3D image.
Do you know of any really good examples? I mean, obviously, because what I'm looking at here are the two images, and is it really hard without the viewer to actually see a decent image merged? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it is. It's something that kind of takes a bit of practice to get at first. But once you get it, it's, second nature.
Fantastic. And so this is very interesting, very niche and particular interest.
Yes.
So where did this one come from?
Brian May. So he from Queen. So, all connects together. So that's one of his interests, and he posts about it on his Instagram. That's something that he's been interested in since he was a little boy. And it's been an interest throughout his entire life. So he has spoken about stereos on his Instagram. He posts his stereos from time to time. He has the London Stereoscopic Company, which is like the modern company for stereos, and he kind of encourages people to give it a try. So I did. It was this selfie thing that he was saying, "Oh, try this. Take this stereo selfie and just try it out and post it." So I did. I tried it out, and it just kind of went from there. Like I got a bit of help from Brian himself, which is something not a lot of people can say. So he kind of, gave me some tips. So every time I'd post one, he'd be like, "This is really good. Just do this next time," until I got it. and it kind of sparks it from there. And I started like trying like normal stereos, and I just became completely fixated on it. And that's basically just what I post on my Instagram account now.
And the odd song.
Yes, I do.
And is there, I mean, obviously, so there's that connection to Queen.
Yes.
And Brian May.
Yes.
But is there anything in particular about it that you love? So, like, why do you love the medium, I guess?
I think there's something really, really special. It just adds so much to a photo. Like you've just got your bog standard photo. But if you, because I have an interest in photography, and if you then see that image in 3D, it adds so much to it, and it just makes it special, I guess. No, it's absolutely brilliant. I love it.
And you have the Brian May book.
Yeah,
and
I have quite a few stereoscopes. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have 8 different ones.
the actual viewers.
Yeah. Usually I have one on my bedside table, but I don't have it today.
Fantastic.
So there's different types that you can get, like modern ones. So you've got your big ones where you put your phone in, and then you've got like, smaller ones more.
And the one in the Brian May book, is that one like isn't there one inside the book or part?
Yeah, so that's where 4 of them came from. So those ones are quite big. So you've got like the wee viewer bit, and it kind of like goes out. It's quite long, and then you put your phone at the end, and you get the stereo up on the phone. I'm not very good at explaining things, am I?
No, it's fine. I can see it in my head. I think visually. Obviously,
Yes.
Some people might struggle with visualization, but the descriptions are quite helpful. And then you very recently have a new dedicated interest.
Yes.
So do you want to tell us what this new dedicated interest is?
So the band Gorillaz is something that I've recently got into. And what sparked it was my dad played me the album Demon Days, and it brought back a lot of childhood memories for me, because in about, I think it was 2000, and I don't know if it was when it came out or just after that when my dad bought it, but he had it on CD and he used to play it to us when we were kids, and me and all my siblings loved it. We absolutely adored this album, and I think we probably wore out the CD. We'd have it on in the car, we'd have it on at home, and so many of like my core memories are linked to this album. So it brought all that back, and I started to kind of go, okay, well, I want to listen to other stuff too. So I started listening to their albums, and I got kind of hooked. But what hit me was finding out about the people behind it, which is what sparks it. That's what sparks my interests.
So for those people who maybe have lived under a rock, what is Gorillaz? Like, why are they a particularly, I mean, I think they're a particularly interesting band as well.
It's a very interesting concept.
Yes. So do you want to try and describe that concept? Oh, we've lost Anna. Hopefully she'll come back in a second. Oh no, it's just us. I mean, I can talk briefly. Yeah, I mean, Gorillaz for me was a very, I think I would have been a late, mid or late teenager.
It was interesting when she said childhood, and I was like, wow, but it only came out. But of course, to you, it would have been a childhood album. And I was thinking, but it only came out, didn't it? Because my decade sense is different.
My phone crashed.
That's okay.
It crashed.
I was just saying that I remember Gorillaz like mid-teens, late teens, but they were, I guess, they are not similar to Queen at all because they're very, very different. But in the sense of like their technicality of their music is fascinating and beautiful, and then, like you say, the concept of Gorillaz. So do you want to explain that?
So Gorillaz are a virtual band created by Damon Albarn from Blur and Jamie Hewlett, who's an artist. And they were drunk one night and they were watching MTV and they were talking about, oh my God, I hate all these manufactured bands. All these bands are industry plants. And their thought was, if you're going to manufacture a band, you've got to do it right. So they created 4 characters in a band. They created, so they've got Murdoch, who's green and kind of disgusting. They have 2D, who has I won't go into the lore because it's very, very long, even just like the start of it. Yeah, so you've got 2D, which is the one with the white eyes, but his eyes are originally black, but for some reason they changed to white. And then the girl next to him is Noodle, and the one behind is Murdoch. So he's green. Nobody knows why he's green. And that actually outfit is inspired by Bowie, David Bowie. So is actually the 2D one, that they're both used David Bowie as a reference for that. And then that one is Russell. His name's Russell Hobbs after the kettle brand. And then the person on the right is Damon Albarn, and the one on the left is Jamie Hewlett. So Noodle was 10 years old when she joined the band. She's the age up.
As a teenager, this was fascinating. Like the mystery of like, who are these characters? Why don't we actually see, human beings like on stage, and why, this kind of thing. It was really interesting. This kind of like, it was kind of mysterious as well. But I think they managed to do something quite amazing, which was, like I say, the music itself was also told a story. The technical ability was beautiful. The singing was amazing. And then you had these really interesting virtual characters. But I imagine for you, particularly, Anna, because you've got really immersed in it, these are real people.
Yes. So what I like so my interests tend to come, there's usually layers to my interests. So you've got the people, their lives, and the music. But with Gorillaz, you have Damon and Jamie, and then you have the music, and then you have the characters, and then you have the lore. So it's like so many layers to it, and there's just so much to learn. There's so much to kind of, because it's like a story. It's like
But it's what I think from my perspective, because to me, I think the 2000s is only like, I still think the 80s is yesterday, and it isn't. But even more so, I think the early 2000s is only yesterday too. I can remember first hearing the music. Obviously I knew Blur, and they're cool, right? And then the music is like, hey, this is lush. And then I remember seeing the visuals and going, wow. It's like they created a universe. They were in the right place at the right time with the right technology, and they just went boom. And that's what I remember impacting me, was the visuals were just like, the first videos and that were just like, these are cool. And you twin that with, the art-based work, the music as well. And it's just like, it was wow. It was wow.
And the development of the characters is so good that you kind of expect to, go out the house and just meet them in the street. And it's not like they wanted to originally do like, just your typical band, like, living their band life. But they decided to do this whole story, this whole bizarre story. Like Murdoch's a criminal and he wanted to start a band. So he decided, I need equipment. So drove into a keyboard shop. And then there was 2D, whose name's Stewpot, which is kind of ironic because he was in a vegetative state for 2 years because 2D Murdoch hit him with his car. That's why his eyes are black, because he hit him with his car twice. Noodle was a Japanese super soldier who was in a program that they decided was too dangerous, so they're going to kill everyone off. And the person running the program didn't want to kill Noodle off, so he put her in a box and shipped her over. She was 10 years old at the time, to play guitar. You've got Russell, who worked in a record shop, and Murdoch, he's known as a drummer, and Murdoch was like, no, I want you in my band, so kidnapped him. So it's just
so epic.
So much.
And So you said you got back into them because you just heard the music again?
Yeah.
And then just got really interested from there.
Yes.
So there's a little bit of like that, bringing that childhood back with you and then really getting immersed in who they are.
Yeah, it's amazing. There's so much to it, and I think that's what I like about it, is the amount that there is
to
to it.
Absorbed into. Yeah, because we were talking about this obviously just before we started actually doing the session, which was, I guess that's with things like the bands like Queen, with the Gorillaz, and particularly because of the backstory with Gorillaz and things like that, like it doesn't end. Like you can keep learning and going back to things, like listening to them again or reading up on them again. Because I was talking about the issue with us when some of our dedicated interests, that they have like an end point, even if you could go back and do them again. So I was just saying I'd just finished, after a very long stint, reading the Dark Tower / Gunslinger series by Stephen King, and it's been a part of my life for a very long period of time. And I knew that there was an end point, but I was really happy because it was such an extensive number of books, and some of other Stephen King's work, which isn't directly the Dark Tower, relates to it, so you could read. And I did that, and I got the concordance, which is like an encyclopedia that somebody's written to help you as well, like with the storyline and the characters. And I was explaining to Tigger, it's Lord of the Rings meets spaghetti western meets like kind of steampunk, I guess. Like there's no horror in it, which is good because I don't really do well with horror. But the issue I've had is I finished the series like 2 or 3 days ago. So now I'm in mourning. I'm like, I can't read something new at the moment. I tried downloading a new book from an author that I already liked and had read, or their work before, but it's very jarring. I've been in this world every night for well over a year with the same people, the dialect, I'm immersed so much in it, that I'm really struggling now, because I'm like, it's over.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try and do a bit
we were talking about, wasn't it? And it's kind of thing I brought mine back, wasn't it? To I think I every so often will reread Lord of the Rings, just what one of our podcasts is about, or the first podcast was about. And and you get to the end bit, you read whatever. I sometimes have gone to the other books, but in essence, when you come to an end and you close that last page, even after the last line and so on, you enter, because it's been so part of your brain, so part of your life, you're just like, oh. And that's part of the emotional aspect of the journey as well.
Yeah.
And you just have to have time to know that until you revisit it again, you have to just spend a bit of time going.
I think Anna's pretty smart. I think Anna has got fantastic dedicated interests where you don't necessarily have to go through this horrible period of mourning because it's ended.
Yep.
So actually, Anna is the smart one of us. Because I am struggling. I've just bought like a second-hand, because I won't butcher the books that I actually have already, but I've just bought a second-hand book for like 73p of the last in that series. The last one is called The Dark Tower, so it's book 7, which makes it doesn't sound like it's very long, but it's actually technically there's 8 books and a ton of his other books as well. And the last one of his that he wrote, it's like an encyclopedia, it's so big. So I bought a 73p version of the last one, so I can literally like rip pages out, and I'm going to try and I'm not very arty at all, but I want to do something kind of craft with that book, because I just can't move on yet to another series, and I need something. It's so important for me to read before I go to bed, and be in another world, sort of. So I'm gonna try something, because there's amazing. I wonder, actually, this is making me think, like, Anna, for you as well, particularly with your interests, do any of your interests kind of help shape your thoughts or your interactions? Because if I give an example, so because of being immersed in these books, they have phrases, because there's like a multiverse, it's very, very in depth, and there's different dialects, and there's things like if car wills it, ka, and that means it's not destiny quite like destiny, but it's basically saying it is what it is. Yeah. And actually I found that really useful, and I started thinking it, and it sort of kind of helped me when I was getting anxious about scenarios and in situations in real life. And I kept thinking to myself, it's car, which is just because I was so immersed in these books. I'm trying to think about fantastic ones, but yeah, does anything ever help you like that from your specialty?
Maybe not in that way, but it's probably because there isn't something like that in my interests. Whereas if there was something like that, it would be. It kind of, it would be.
It's just, it's helped. It's stuck in my head, and it's actually been, quite useful to think like that.
I used to go back to a Queen song. I used to say it's in the lap of the gods. I used to do that. Yeah, I used to go, it's in the lap of the gods. And that's a line from a Queen song. Yeah, and that's something I did years ago.
Yeah. No, not anything that I can think of.
That's okay. I'm sure you'll probably think of it later and you'll go, oh yeah, I do that all the time. And that's definitely something from Queen or something from Gorillaz, or so that's absolutely fine, because that wasn't a question that we would have given you ahead of time to think about. And it's always difficult to process at the same time. So Tigger, do you want to give our next question? So after the Gorillaz stuff.
Thank you for focusing where I am, because my mind's going all over the place with this awesome discussion. So do you feel that dedicated interests are important for autistic people?
100%. I think it brings so much happiness to people that I don't think neurotypical people experience. This joy of, something that you love so much, because we definitely experience things more intensely than everyone else. And if you're struggling with anything, you can kind of go back to your interests, and you can just completely immerse yourself in them and kind of block out what's going on in your life at that time.
And so sometimes people go, but it's just a book, it's just a song, it's just a piece of work. You know what I mean? And it's like you said, it's almost like Chloe, it's like a bit about where I wish you could. And I've tried to explain this to people close to me. What was it? It was scrambled eggs. It was scrambled egg spinach with a grated cheese on top and some mushrooms for breakfast. Yeah. And the meal was gorgeous. Everything worked. The placemat, the plate, the sunshine. Mrs. Pebbles was next to me. The coffee was in the right kind of cup. Everything was perfectional. And I just went, this is incredible. The intensity of the experience was incredible. And I was trying to get across that intensity there was the same as, that one-off intensity was the same as listening to the same track for 4 or 5 hours on the train. People go, but don't you get bored? No. But you've heard it before. Yeah, I know. Do you know what I mean? Isn't it lush? And it's that kind of thing which I do wish I was better at explaining to people around me who maybe aren't awesomely autistic in a way that they could possibly understand. To them, it's just, you've listened to that before, you've read that before, don't go on about it again. To us, it's like you have no idea the explosion of utter awesomeness in our souls when we hear that start of the track again, or we go back to that book. Do you know what I mean? I find that just incredible.
Well, there's comfort in the knowledge that you know that thing as well, and getting that joy and enjoyment and the stimminess out of it, or just feeling connected to something. And also the predictability. We need our predictability. We need to know what we're doing and what we're going into. And so probably more so than non-autistic people, although I'm sure some non-autistic people do the same thing, when we are struggling, we don't look for a new show on Netflix. We look for an old show that we know the words to, and it's comforting.
Yeah.
And we've got that predictability. We've got a little bit more control over a very chaotic world when we have that.
Definitely. Oh, 100%, I think. So like a safety net. you know, going back to something that's familiar just, you know, sometimes helps.
I wonder, and correct me if I'm wrong, Anna, because this is just something I'm thinking of, and so I feel like it's maybe I'm referring to myself and you might not feel this, but your connection to the characters for Gorillaz and the people of Queen and things like that, as autistic people, we can, until we find our other autistic, you know, friends and this community, we really do struggle to connect to other human beings. But we can really understand and feel connected to characters in books where we've got all the details. We don't have to ask questions about who they are and find out who they are. It's all there for us and we can feel connected to them. You know, Tigger brought up Alan Turing about the film. Watching that film, and I just think about how lonely he must have been. And I think to myself, he seemed amazing. I would have been his friend. You know, this kind of thing. We feel a different sort of connection, maybe. What does that make sense? And I don't know if that's something you might experience.
Yeah, no, I do actually. I think, I don't know how to put it, but no, I do experience that kind of. It's like a you know, find connections, and you just think, you know,
I know this person. I didn't have to do terrible small talk, and I didn't have to pretend to, I don't know, like talking about the weather and all that kind of thing. We get to actually learn about people and feel connected to them without feeling weird as well. Like, we don't have to feel uncomfortable. We don't have to feel awkward. This is just something that's come into my head at this point in time. So it's not a really fully sort of fledged idea. I'm just thinking, yeah, particularly when our interests are people or characters or fictional series and things like that, I think it's easier to understand those people.
yeah, you're completely right. Oh, it's completely gone. My brain is not working today.
Sorry, it wasn't a question that I had sent you ahead of time, because I like that it just came to me now, because I was just thinking we get more connected to than just the technicality of the music or just the stimminess of something. And I think because we've mentioned before to you, obviously outside of this particular session, Sixto Rodriguez, who is Sugar Man, and he's a fascinating person. So you might not remember, I was explaining, I came across him as a musician and a singer. He only released 2 albums in the 70s, and they're amazing. They're so beautiful. But he didn't do well because he was a minority in the 70s in America.
Yeah, I remember you talking about this.
But his stuff, the technicality of it's amazing. It's stimmy, the story that goes with the songs, but also the story of who he is. He didn't do well. You know, he kind of ended up being a labourer and just, you know, I say just having a family. I don't mean it like that. I mean, he just didn't go far with his music. But somebody took a couple of his vinyls, or a vinyl, to South Africa. And he is bigger than Elvis in South Africa, because his music was kind of like, you've got that maybe a bit of Bob Dylan, and it kind of going against the man, as it were, and things like this. And it became he was an important inspiration and an anthem for a very disenfranchised South Africa. And he didn't know. He was a really important person. And so I found out about him because there was a documentary on him, which I recommend anyone watching, The Search for Sugar Man. They thought he was dead. Spoiler. I won't say anymore. And it's just, but the actual music, I listened to it for about 6 months on repeat. And not only was I just thinking about the technicality of the music, the stimminess, I was also thinking about this amazing human being who was really fascinating. Like, he would sit on stage not facing the audience because he was too nervous, and just sing this amazing, in this beautiful way. I've gone off on a tangent. But yeah, I think we get connected to the people because it's easier to in that way. We've got a question as well, which is, so we kind of have talked about why are our dedicated interests important. And for you, I've got the question kind of like, how do they make you feel, your dedicated interests? And do they help you recharge your spoons, for instance? So for people watching, autistic people, we tend to talk about our energy, our cognitive energy, physical energy, etc., in terms of spoons, units of spoons, just in case people weren't sure. So yeah, Anna, do you feel your dedicated interests recharge your spoons?
Definitely. It's kind of, people would think, oh, you know, it takes up more of your energy to, you know, go back and really, really think about something. But it is kind of an escape. And I think that escape from reality, the escape from real life and, you know, responsibilities and people does help. You know, it takes my mind off things. It completely relaxes me. I'm completely in my element when I'm learning about these, you know, watching videos. It's like an escape and a break. And I think you need a break to recharge your spoons. And, you know, that's just some people's.
And I know your fantastic family would never take you away from or belittle your dedicated interests. I know that they support you, as far as I understand anyway, with your dedicated interests. I'm thinking about potential advice we could give to families that are concerned about their young person's dedicated interests. So what would we be why would we be concerned that somebody might want to take away that dedicated interest of that young autistic person?
Because interests mean so much to people. You know, it brings them happiness, and sometimes for people they don't have that happiness with other things. So if you remove that, you know,
what's left them with? Yeah.
And I know if you tell somebody, oh well, I don't really want to hear about this, I don't want you to talk about this, it really, because I've had a couple of people say, and I'm just getting all excited about it, I'm like, oh my god, I love this, and they literally just like, is this the point where I'm supposed to be interested? And it hurts. It really, really hurts. And I can't imagine somebody, you know, being belittled for that, because I know how much would be taken away. So much of their happiness, so much of their life would just be, you know, taken away from them. So I think interests are really, really important.
And I think particularly what's fascinating amongst us in the community is that we don't have to know about your dedicated interest or ever been interested in it ourselves or even heard of it before. But I am always quite interested to hear from another autistic person about their dedicated interests. It is fascinating. Okay, tell me about trains and train timetables. I actually find it interesting when an autistic person is telling me about it, because the knowledge, the intricate little things that they might know about that topic, it's just really contagious. It's a fantastic feeling.
It's that connection, isn't it? It's the fact that you know, they know, you know. If that makes sense. Does that make sense at all? Yeah. So so when it comes to that interest, that passion, when something smells gorgeously, perfectionly right, they get it. They get it about trains. I get it about Queen, or you know, other stuff as well. Whatever we're talking about, and I love that. I met a 12-year-old. I think he was 12 at an outdoor party a couple of weeks ago, and he was into artificial intelligence. I was petrified. Right, I'm going to go to this party. I'm really petrified. I don't know what to do. And I thought, I'm going to go, and I did all the pre-planning ahead and what people might ask me nice to it. 12-year-old kid sat down. I spent most of the party talking to this 12-year-old kid about artificial intelligence, quantum mechanics, and how to change aspects of the body with nanotechnology and so on. It was awesome. It was one of the best parties I've been to for ages. Not that I've been to any for it. It was just that connection. And I would talk about my bits of passion, which was similar to his in some ways, and he told me about it. And it was just brilliant. And it's that connection which I love as well. Is if you sit next to somebody who doesn't get it, as you said, I cannot describe, Anna, the bit where that you know, I know, we all know, where you begin to show maybe your true self. You begin to explain why something is so important, and someone just cuts.
Yeah.
The devastation that does is incredible. And more often not, after that, I'm off to play the same track over again, or watch the same TV show, etc. that I've watched before.
Yeah.
And I think because we don't do small talk, our small talk will be our dedicated interest. That is how we talk to one another. That's how we connect. And a lot of non-autistic people get frustrated with that. They don't understand that. They're like, why aren't you asking me about myself? And it's like, that's not how we work. We work by sharing our dedicated interests. And I have seen in our social groups when we were offline, when we were in a physical space, 2 autistic people, one of them was relatively new, not actually been to the group before, didn't really know the person sitting next to them, hadn't talked to each other, they were just sitting there. Somebody across the room mentioned a particular anime series or something. These 2 both realised they were both into that, and that was it. For an hour, they could have known each other for 10 years, you would have thought. If you'd walked in and seen them talking, you'd gone, best friends, or in a relationship, or, they know each other. Didn't know each other at all. But they connected over their dedicated interests. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it, because it's actually a really beautiful way for us to connect with people. So if you're a non-autistic person and you want to speak our language and you want to communicate with us, pay attention, get interested when we talk. We don't need you to know. We know, we're the experts in our dedicated interests. We know the ins and the outs of that thing. You don't need to know very much about it. That's fine. But just, have a listen to us, because we are sharing something we find so, so important to us. It's like, I don't know, passing over a baby. I trust you. Here, carry my baby. But we trust you enough to open up about our dedicated interest. So we've talked about spoons. So we've kind of have obviously mentioned and touched on how we feel that it does help our well-being. When we're feeling down, we might watch or get into something really good that, that of our dedicated interests. If we're overwhelmed, we might go and get into our music that we're interested in because it's stimmy and it distracts us and things like that. So do you feel that your dedicated interests, which you've touched on, have helped yourself in terms of your well-being?
Yeah. When I was at school, I would never take my headphones off. I would never take them off. I'd be listening to music the entire day. And as soon as I would take them off, or as soon as I was made to take them off, things would just go downhill. I get stressed, I get overwhelmed, I'd be irritated easily. I couldn't focus in class. So music definitely helped me a lot during school. Kind of when things got stressful, and instead of, having a total meltdown, just shove my headphones on, blast it, ignore everyone else. So it did have a big effect with me during school. And also, I was in hospital for quite a bit. I spent a total of 9.5 months in hospital, and it was a very, very triggering place because I experienced trauma in there. So what I would do, and that's where the Prophet song came in, I would put my headphones on and I would listen to it on repeat all night. When things were getting too stressful, I closed my eyes and I completely block out where I was. I wasn't anywhere. I had my eyes shut. And because it had so much going on, because there's so much going on in that song, there's so many parts to it, it just completely gave my brain something else to concentrate on and kind of drown out all of those negativities. And that's just, in general, that's what music does to me, and that's what my interests do to me. It's just completely shut reality off.
And can we touch on briefly how Brian May might have actually helped you?
So
making people jealous.
I think it was, when was it? 2019, Brian May posted a thing on his Instagram saying, I'm giving away the first of these records that were being released for Record Store Day to the most inspirational comment. So I commented, and I spoke a little bit about my experiences with mental health and how Queen's music helped me get through that. I thought nothing of it, turned my phone off, went to sleep, and a couple of days later, I couldn't sleep. It was about 3 a.m. and my phone went off, and I was like, okay, what's going on here? So I checked it, and it said Brian May liked your comment. So I was like freaking out. I was like, oh my God, you just liked my comment. I've been noticed by Brian May. And a minute later, he replied to my comment. So I was like running around my room. And by the time I'd calmed down, I picked up my phone again. He requested to follow me on Instagram. So he follows me on Instagram, and I've had quite a bit of contact with him since. He encouraged me to start posting music. And he even he's reposted my artwork a couple of times. He reposted a video of me singing, which was like probably the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. And like, I have his email address, and he signed my guitar.
Oh.
You know, which is my prized possession. So it's been amazing. It really has.
Which is just a lovely story, and just your point as well, which is that Brian May is a lovely person.
He is.
It's from that picture years ago. You could tell Brian May was my favourite. Yeah, so I said, "I'll be Brian May." Put the wig on, all the rest of it. Yeah, but when we've spoken before, and then I've learned stuff. You know, when you know someone is like, wow, you know, Brian May is wow. It's like smells so right. He's almost up there with dog's paws. I mean, there's no other way of doing it. Yeah, we are talking. You know, just wow. I'll leave it there. I think he's just absolutely superb.
He's so kind. He's exactly how you'd expect him to be. Yeah, oh, he's wonderful. I love him to bits.
See, and all of this, what all of this discussion is showing is the importance of our dedicated interests. They are not special interests. They're not these little things that autistic people do that are annoying, that take up all of our lives and time. You know, they are so important in multiple ways, in sensory ways, stimmy ways, in terms of our well-being, to distract us from things when they're not going that well, to help us communicate to other autistic people. Like, these are huge important things for autistic people. So I can't imagine that we haven't helped a family understand the real true importance of dedicated interest for their young person. Let them be fascinated by washing machines and, you know, what have you. Yeah, fantastic. Yes. Lovely. Have you got any other final thoughts, Tigger, before we do our favourite? You can do the favourite last question.
Thanks. No, it's just that, I mean, you know, we could go on for like a day and a half, really, just to start with. We could go on for hours, and we have done. You know, it's just, you know, before, it's just, but it's the bit about, it's about the passion bit. I beg of some of you out there that are watching this, maybe to learn, maybe to understand. You said about somebody organising stuff. Nothing. Our whole education system sometimes revolves around you must do this job, you must get this, you must get that, and ignores skills and strengths that all some autistic individuals have, and our passions, our insights, our emotional hugging of things that we adore are so important. And I think that, you know, those comments sometimes we hear, oh, you're putting that on again. Oh, you read it before. Oh, no, you told me about that last week. Can be so like inside. It's understanding maybe that passion, our interest, our special interest, as other people may see it, is so important in a way that I have not yet found a way to get it across to somebody, unless I describe it with emotions. And I would love to find a way to get it across to everybody out there, so for their child they understand that their special interest, manga, toys, dinosaurs, trains, astronomy, whatever, is so gorgeously important to that person's life. You have no idea. And I'd love to get that across. And I hope that this, and your awesome passion, Anna, has done some of that today for everybody.
It does. It gives us meaning, I think. My dedicated interests have given me meaning in life. They give me a reason to get up in the morning, and things like that. So I think actually, yeah, they are just the most important thing a lot of the time for us as autistic people. I just want to flag as well for people that we do have a number of closed autistic only groups for Aucademy, and we've got a very new one on Discord. I'm a bit old for Discord, but I'm giving it a good go because Discord works really well for us to connect over our dedicated interests. So we've got a Discord called Info Dump Vaults. So it's the Aucademy Info Dump Vaults, as it sounds. It's just a place where anyone who's 13 years plus, so 13 years plus with parental consent, unless obviously you're an adult, you can connect. You find the Discord page via our, we've got an Aucademy Info Dump Vaults group on Facebook. That's just like a gatekeep in space. So you go on there, answer the questions, and then you can get the link to the Discord. But there's just so many channels, and you can ask for new ones where the vaults in quotation marks, where you can have that dedicated interest. There is a Stephen King one on there. Feel free to come over and chat to me about Dark Tower, because I need somebody to info dump with who's actually read the series. Or even if you haven't, I'll info dump anyway. We could add a stereoscopy photography info dump, and you can just info dump to your heart's content. There's things that people would imagine as like the typical things that autistic people might be interested in, like Doctor Who. That's actually a Doctor Who poster up here, which you probably can't see, which is the my favourite episode ever is the Van Gogh episode. I just love the idea of Van Gogh actually knowing how loved his artwork was. And I know it's not real, but it made me feel so emotionally connected to this amazing human being. So fantastic Doctor Who episode. Doctor Who, there's Marvel, there's just so many things you can connect with. And it's not a typical peer or support group. The purpose is just to connect over our dedicated interests because they're so important to us. So just in case people aren't aware that we've got that new group. So I'm going to leave it with Tigger for our fantastic final question.
So what's your favourite stim?
Probably, I don't really know if it's a stim, but it's playing with my hair. I don't know if you've
Definitely
seen...
a stim.
I don't know if you've seen me out. I've been doing it throughout. It's like I get a piece of my hair and I run it along my fingernail and my finger, and it's like this cool, it's like quite cold feeling. And I've done it for years, and it just, I don't know, it's really, really relaxing. I love it.
That's a fantastic one. Yeah, because I like the coldness of my nails
Uh-huh.
and the smoothness, but you're doing it with the hair as well. I don't have any hair, so I can't do that.
I'm not saying anything.
I'm surprised you didn't say something related to music. But
Yeah, well, I don't really know what would be classed as a stim, if I'm completely honest, relating to music.
The reason I bring that up is because obviously we ask all our guests this question, and I like asking this question for a number of reasons, but it's a nice way to like tie in and end the session. But I also like to hear the difference across autistic people. But what I found interesting recently is people have talked more about auditory stims, so like repetition of words or certain songs or this kind of thing. So I just, yeah, it's fascinating because we have so many different types.
I do have one. So Murdoch from Gorillaz has a very smooth voice. It's really, really embarrassing what it is, because he makes noises and sometimes it can be quite questionable But his voice is just, and there's this one, and I was listening to it on repeat the entire night the other night. It's like he's in the video. He's sitting naked on a piano, playing the piano in like this middle of a field. It was a Motorola advert, and he picks up the phone, and goes, Motorola. I can't talk now. I'm naked. And it's that audio that, like, it's not like the contents of the audio. Like, it just, I don't know. It just kind of makes my whole body just go.
So it's the way he says it, right? Lovely.
Fantastic. It's his voice is so smooth. It's just, I love it.
Fantastic. And then we've got Tigger's been with his trusty blue tack, which he's
you
can actually watch.
Well, no, I was thinking of a song and a voice one as well, and I was just thinking of this. I continually play snippets of Queen songs in my head sometimes, and other songs as well. But I'd love to find a way to edit this on loop somehow, because when you go onto smart speakers and that, they just play. But there's a last bit of some songs, that the guitar solo in Brighton Rock, the piano bit, Love of My Life, stuff like that. I continually play them and continually replay them sometimes in my head. It's like pause and again, pause and again, pause and again. And it's like a voice, I suppose. There's certain tonal qualities to it which just make me go, play it again. And I really need to get into this technology stuff and just create a file, I think, where I can put all those wonderful bits of tracks in, and voices in, like and get them to replay. Oh, is there? Oh, I love the way you guys educate
I'll
me.
ask my dad about it, because he's got something that he uses when he's playing guitar to kind of repeat the same part that he's playing. So I'll find that out for you.
On loop, yeah, fantastic. Such a fantastic session. Thank you so much, Anna. Thank you, Tigger. Thank you, fantastic people, for being here. To let you know, our next session is with Andy from Spectrum Gaming, fantastic group and organisation, who now have over 800 or around 800 young people they support via Spectrum Gaming. And what's going to be really interesting is Andy's going to explain it's really more than just a gaming community now. They do projects, they do all sorts of things. So that's going to be really, really interesting. And Andy had a number of topics that he could have covered, and I was like, I want all of them. But we're going to focus on youth loneliness, and how some of those young people that they support via Spectrum Gaming made friends because of Spectrum Gaming as autistic people. So, okay, it sounds like a sort of sensitive and maybe sad topic, because we're talking about youth loneliness, but what we're talking about as well is how do we actually help those young people who are autistic? Because we do want friends, but our connection to people, as we've spoken about today, is just different to non-autistic people. So we might need a different way to do that. So that one's going to be really interesting to hear from Andy on Spectrum Gaming. Thank you, everyone, so much. We're going to play our jangly outro music to stim to, and we will see you all on the next Aucademy session. Bye.
Bye.